Greetings, everyone. In this video, I would like to address the question, what can we learn about classical music from Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life? In other words, how can we put the ideas expressed by Jordan Peterson in this book in dialogue with our experiences of listening to the music of the great composers? So I wanted to start with this passage. If you allow yourself to be informed by the reality manifesting itself as you struggle forward, your notions of what is important will change. You will reorient yourself, sometimes gradually, and sometimes suddenly and radically. Jordan Peterson is not describing music here, yet I believe that this quote perfectly captures the potential power of listening to the music of the great composers. Indeed, the greatest power of the composers is their ability to shift our understanding of what is important in life. It might not be what we initially thought. When listening to music, our notions of what is important might change. Now, having started with that quote, I will now shift to a number of ways in which I think that the experience of listening to music is quite different, indeed perhaps antithetical to, the framework that Peterson expresses throughout the book. Or, at the very least, we can further and deepen our appreciation of music by putting music in dialogue with Peterson's ideas. There are three themes that I would like to discuss, three themes that are put forward by Peterson throughout the book. First, the idea that meaning is derived by pursuing goals. Second, the idea that I must change. And third, the idea that the present is imperfect. So first, the idea that meaning is derived by pursuing goals. Let's look at some of the passages from Peterson's book. We are always and simultaneously at point A, which is less desirable than it could be, moving towards point B, which we deem better, in accordance with our explicit and implicit values. We always encounter the world in a state of insufficiency and seek its correction. We live within a framework that defines the present as eternally lacking. If we did not see things this way, we would not act at all. What do I want? Exactly. You must speak forthrightly and call forth the habitable world from chaos. You must determine where you are going in your life, because you cannot get there unless you move in that direction. Random wandering will not move you forward. Any hierarchy creates winners and losers. The winners are, of course, more likely to justify the hierarchy and the losers to criticize it. But, 1, the collective pursuit of any valued goal produces a hierarchy, as some will be better and some worse at that pursuit, no matter what it is. And 2, it is the pursuit of goals that in large part lends life its sustaining meaning. We experience almost all emotions that make life deep and engaging as a consequence of moving successfully towards something deeply desired and valued. How might we compare these ideas with our experience of listening to music? First, if the great composers teach us anything, It is that we do not know what we want. In the flow of great music, yes, we do move from point A to point B, but often there are interruptions. And the experience of these interruptions, these suddenly new thoughts and emotions that enter in unexpectedly, these interruptions often provide us within the music the greatest significance and with the greatest depth of feeling. Peterson writes, relatedly, random wandering will not move you forward. But often in music, it is the experience of wandering that leads to the deepest insights. Of course, this wandering is never exactly random, but it can definitely feel aimless, disorienting, and even threatening. But these unexpected and seemingly uncontrollable explorations, or these streams of consciousness in the music, often lead us closer to the truth, especially with respect to the truth of our own inner experience. Peterson refers to our explicit and implicit values, but very often we do not know what these values are, or we have multiple values, and those values are often in conflict, and we have no way of rationally reconciling them. The composers make this very clear. But music does provide us with one way to reconcile all of this, and that is to accept the present moment. Within music, we are, within a moment in time, allowed to accept, to embrace, to revel in, to be fully present within the present moment. This provides, then, no need to strive from point A to point B. Our conflicting emotions, ideas, and values can be reconciled and allowed to coexist in an instant within the given instant. In music, we experience meaning within the present moment, and in this way, the present moment is able to transcend the pursuit of goals, the incessant striving from point A to point B. This is not to say that humans do not pursue goals from day to day and over a lifetime. And this is not to say that hierarchies of dominance and of competence do not exist in the world. But it is to say that the experience of listening to music is in sharp relief to Peterson's emphasis on the climbing of these hierarchies and on the centrality of the pursuit of goals to human experience. Peterson claims that we experience almost all the emotions that make life deep and engaging as a consequence of moving successfully towards something deeply desired and valued. Yet, in music, this is often the opposite case. Often in music, the deepest and most meaningful emotions, even if those emotions are painful, are experienced when we unsuccessfully move towards a goal. That is, when we pursue a goal but fail, or when we realize that our pursuit of this goal or our pursuit of a given dream seems to be impossible, achievable only within a realm of unreality. Very often, a piece of classical music might have an ostensible goal or an ostensible mood, but very often that goal or mood is eventually, within the piece, subverted. In the subversion of the goals or in the subversion of the original mood, we realize that pursuing a goal is not necessarily where we can find the deepest meaning. This points perhaps to a religious principle. Goals in this world are meaningful, but these goals are ultimately empty, futile, and fleeting. Real meaning is found in transcendence, in embracing that which is beyond the goals of this world. And this transcendence is achieved by embracing the present moment, the eternal now. This is what music allows and invites. The second theme to explore: the idea that I must change. Let's consider the following passages from Peterson's book. You should never sacrifice what you could be for what you are. It might even be time to sacrifice what you love best so that you can become who you might become instead of staying who you are. How might we compare these ideas to our experience of listening to music? There is a difference between living life forwards and sacrificing who you are. Indeed, a characteristic of the great music of the great composers is not only the experience of acceptance, but also the experience of synthesis and of integration. Exploring who I am, acknowledging who I am, and accepting who I am, and choosing to live life forwards with the full embrace of who I am. That includes feelings of grief, suffering, disappointment, regret, longing, and the pain of broken dreams. But that is the salutary effect of listening to music. Not rejecting who we are or what we feel, but exploring, acknowledging, and accepting who we are and how we feel. In other words, it is acceptable to be you in this life. It is okay to carry with you feelings of grief, regret, and longing, precisely because these are human experiences. Our feelings are a part of who we are, and it is acceptable to feel them. And once we accept this reality, we can move forward and live life forward fully. This is what the great composers teach. The great composers teach that we do not have to sacrifice ourselves. In contrast, music scaffolds us towards, and indeed exhorts us to open ourselves up to our experiences and to accept those experiences, not to reject them, even if those experiences are a source of pain. Even if the thought of a broken dream does hinder us, we need not reject that feeling because this experience is part of who we are. The broken dream is part of who we are. But the paradox is that by accepting our disappointments and our imperfections, we are able to live life in the fullest way. We are able to transcend our imperfections because we realize that imperfection itself is a part of the human experience. And by being a part of the human experience in an overarching way, we are already, even with our imperfections, a member of that which is universal, that which is eternal. The third and final theme to explore: the idea that the present is imperfect. Let's consider the following passages from Peterson's book. Heaven will, after all, not arrive of its own accord. We will have to work to bring it about. We will always encounter the world in a state of insufficiency and seek its correction. We live within a framework that defines the present as eternally lacking, If we did not see things this way, we would not act at all. The person who wishes to alleviate suffering, who wishes to rectify the flaws in being, who wants to create heaven on earth, will make the greatest sacrifices of everything that is loved. He will in that manner bring salvation to the ever-desperate world. How might these ideas compare with our experience of listening to music? The music of the great composers depicts suffering, vulnerability, pain, and imperfection. Of that, there can be no doubt. And yet, in their music, there is a powerful credo: the choice to say yes to life as it is. Despite everything, there is a truth that lies beyond our experience of joy, pain, love, doubt, hope, beauty, and suffering. Behind all of these emotions, behind all of these experiences, there is a deeper reality. The reality of human experience. And to say yes to this, to say yes to the world, to say yes to the experience of experience, is often the thesis of great music. To say yes and to affirm life as it is. And life can only be affirmed within the present moment. Music makes no call to improve the metaphysical nature of reality or of being itself. Within the context of listening to music, there is only one call on our lives, only one thing demanded of us, and that is to say yes to life, to affirm the experience of this present moment. This moment, our reality, our experience of this life, can be accepted as it is, even with its limitations, its imperfections, and its pain. Within the context of listening to music, we don't need to improve the present. We only need to accept it. And we accept life because life is enough. This involves being fully open to the present and embracing the present, recognizing the experience of the eternal now. But note that the present is something that Peterson, in his book, explicitly rejects. He writes, "When engaging in sacrifice, our forefathers began to act out what would be considered a proposition, that something better might be attained in the future by giving up something of value in the present, the sacrifice of the now to gain benefit later." This passage in particular is antithetical to the teaching of the composers and to the experience of music in general. The eternal now is found in the experience of the present, opening oneself up to the present experience fully, which is something that music facilitates. The sacrifice of the now is antithetical to what the great composers exhort us to do. From the perspective of the great composers, humans are not tasked with creating heaven on earth. Rather, humans are tasked with the renewing of their mind. Humans are tasked with the opening up of themselves to experience, and thereby they might experience eternity on earth, even if just for one moment. If we can accept the present moment fully, then we can begin to see that we do not need to change the present. We only need to accept it fully as it is. To be able to do so, of course, is a moment of grace. And grace need not be added to. Grace cannot be improved upon. It can only be accepted. This grace, this salvation, has already been provided to mankind. All one needs to do is accept it, affirm it, experience it, and consider it sufficient. This is what all of the great composers teach us. That is the good news that they teach. You do not have to save yourself. You do not have to save the world. You merely must be open to the present moment. You must be willing to renew your mind by saying yes to this moment, to the eternal now. In music, we see that heaven is not something that we need to create, not something that we have to build, not something that we could ever build. Heaven is something that we perceive, something that we experience in the present moment. By allowing us to experience that which is beyond the rational, even beyond our understanding, music helps us to connect to the numinous, to the eternal. The great composers help us to experience our inner world, and likewise, they facilitate our imagining of the landscape of eternity. And through this, we realize that eternity is greater than we will ever be, and that all we have to do to become a part of eternity is to accept it, to take it into ourselves, to allow ourselves to be taken into it. When we listen to music, I might say that one thing above all becomes clear, and that is that there is only one desire worth having, the desire beyond and above all desires, the desire to which nothing else compares. I ask the universe, I ask eternity, hold me close. Why then would I want to climb the hierarchy of this world? Why then would I want to become the savior of this world, as if that were possible? The hierarchies of this world are worthless compared to the prospect of being held close by eternity itself. And that is why I do think that there is an excellent quote in Peterson's book that captures the experience of listening to the music of the great composers. Returning to the quote again, if you allow yourself to be informed by the reality manifesting itself as you struggle forward, your notions of what is important will change, and you will reorient yourself, sometimes gradually and sometimes suddenly and radically. Indeed, when you listen to music, your notions of what is important will change. Just having had the experience to hear this music right now, in just this moment, if that is all there is, that is enough. My soul experienced what it means to be present, and I am grateful to the composers for this, because this moment was enough.